I'm holding in my gut for the start of the video, so it's not so obvious that I am fat. Hey folks, welcome for the start of an epic showdown. Today we're going to pit the brand new Hasselblad X1Dii 250C that's just been released against the Fujifilm GFX 50R that was released earlier this year. They share the exact same sensor and a lot of the same specs on paper. There's not a lot that separates them. But let's see once we get them in the hand in a real photo shoot side by side how they compare. Okay folks, this video is brought to you by NordVPN. I've been using NordVPN for years and I spend about half the year on the road. So I have the app installed on all my phones, laptops, and actually on all the computers in the studio as well. Of course, the main benefit is online security and privacy, especially when you're on unsecured Wi-Fi, but it's also great for seeing regional video content online. And I find for masking your exact location, it helps to get the best prices for flights, like the tickets I just bought for us for London. If you head on over to nordvpn.com/Matt Granger, you can get 75% off their 3-year plan and use the code Matt Granger at checkout and you'll get 1 month extra. They have literally thousands of servers all around the world and they're always adding more. They're nice and fast enough for everything that I do when I'm traveling, so check them out. The link is in the description below. So, these two behemoth cameras, let me just give you a, before we've done the test conclusion, they're both going to perform beautifully, but we do want to see how they perform side by side. It's an area that a lot of people are interested in. So before anything else, let's jump in and look at them up close, show you the specs that are the same and what actually separates them out. Taking a look around these cameras, first up with the Fujifilm, they really share a lot in common. They have exactly the same sensor. Let's get that out of the way at the beginning. The effective final resolution is ever so slightly higher on the Hasselblad, but it's the same sensor. Differences, however, the Fujifilm has a native ISO of 100 to 12,800, but it will let you extend down to 50 and up to 102,400. The mechanical shutter will go from 60 minutes to a 4,000th of a second, and with the electronic shutter you can go up to 1/16,000th. But using the mechanical shutter, your flash sync on the Fuji is limited to 1/125th or slower. It's doing around 3 frames a second. It's got a 3.69 million dot OLED at a 0.77 magnification, a 3.2 inch 2.36 million dot tilting touchscreen. They both do full HD up to 30 frames a second, that's all the sensor supports. And despite looking fairly boxy and having the ergonomics of a VHS cassette, the Fuji only weighs 775 grams with the battery and memory card. It's actually surprisingly light when you pick it up, being quite big that it's so light. Now the Hasselblad. Big difference between these two is that the Hasselblad uses a leaf shutter design. The shutter is in the lenses. So that allows for some cool things. So first of all, they're mostly limited to 1/2000th of a second overall, but you can sync all the way up to that amount. So where it's 1/125th on the Fuji, we can go to 1/2000th on the Hasselblad. It will also do an hour-long exposure, and the electronic shutter can go up to 1/10,000th of a second. It's also doing just under 3 frames per second. I should say they both have contrast-only autofocus and they both have 117 points. This has a slightly higher res OLED EVF at 3.67 million dots and a noticeably bigger magnification at 0.87. The rear screen is now up to 3.6 inches, also bigger. It's still touchscreen, but it doesn't tilt like the Fuji. Both cameras have 2 SD card slots that will support UHS 2. The Hasselblad has Wi-Fi and GPS built in, whereas the Fuji supports it, but you need to connect via your smartphone. And funnily enough, the Hasselblad looks smaller, is smaller, but it's only 10 grams lighter. And while the Fuji feels light when you pick it up because it's big and chunky, the Hasselblad, being so small and felt, actually feels quite heavy in the hand relative to its size. The feel of them, it's like the Fuji is made from plastic but then wrapped in thin tin, whereas the Hasselblad is milled from a single piece of aluminium and all of the pieces have been stuck in that. It's like comparing a plastic Dell laptop and a MacBook Pro or something. So, these two cameras, they're both going to give us beautiful results. I have no question about that. Actually, as a backstory, I've actually done a full field tested on this camera already. I shot with it for about 3 weeks, probably 10,000 frames as I traveled around Japan. I know it quite well, but still to get things side by side, that's when you can do a real comparison. The X1Dii I've shot with for about half an hour, but I did shoot with the X1Dii original for about a year. This is updated, but it shares a lot of the same stuff. So we're gonna see how they do overall side by side. Now, it's funny because in a way, I don't think comparing camera brands is that useful because people aren't generally looking to jump brands that often. Like when I started as that Nikon guy, it was all because when I first was moving from Olympus to something, I tried them, I fell in love with the ergonomics of a Nikon, and that was it. I stuck with it for a decade. I'm still primarily a Nikon shooter. But there are a lot of people, it seems, going from mirrorless or DSLR, wanting to go into full frame, so they're going to be investing in a whole new range of lenses anyway, who could be comparing these. So that's what we're going to do. I think this is going to end up being quite a long series and more than one video in the series. But in this video, we're going to do a shoot indoors and outdoors. I'm going to share image files, download files with you guys, talk about the design, the layout, the handling, and how I found the autofocus. And then in future videos, we're going to talk about lens selection and shooting them for nature and shooting them for street photography, overall value, all of those different things, so we can really get a good overview of these two cameras. So let's shoot. Cool. Okay, so Steph is changing into her first outfit. I'm gonna set up a simple clamshell lighting setup here. Clamshell, if you've not seen it, is called that because it looks like a clamshell. We'll have one light above and one below, equal distance from her, ideally equal power, equal size, equal color, equal everything. And then the two of them offset each other, so then you don't get a shadow cast up or down. It's a really beautiful, flattering light. You can achieve it with nice, simple flashes, like here I'm using the Nissan Di 700s. And then I'll probably add a third one in the back just to lift up the background and give us a nice little separation there. So I've got matching umbrellas. These are the smaller ones, the 33-inch ones from Impact, and we'll go from there. Okay, so as we said in the specs, the Fuji for this kind of shooting, because I'm not using high-speed sync, I'm doing it all manual, will only sync at 1/125th, so I need to check that it's able to get exposure here. The Hasselblad, obviously I can go to 1/2000th. That's one of the main advantages of a leaf shutter other than reducing vibration. It gives you a much better possibility to control the ambient just with your shutter speed. If you're into off-camera flash, you'll know the importance of that. If you're not, it may not make a difference to you. This whole process only takes a minute or two to set up, and it's a really beautiful, repeatable result. Definitely check it out if you haven't tried it before. Okay, so set up, we've got a couple of lights here. Balanced, I think they're at an 8th power, I'm at f4. Now, as I'm going to go into it later in the video series, there aren't directly comparable lenses in these systems, and I don't have all of the lenses anyway. So I have the 110mm from Fuji that we're shooting with in this setup, and then I've got the 80mm and the 120mm from Hasselblad. Now, you know, the 120 sounds closer, but it's a slower aperture macro lens, whereas the 80mm is a faster aperture portrait lens. So I'll shoot with both of them against this one, and we'll see how we go. Let's just check our exposure one last time here. And this is happening. Anyone who joins our workshops will get to know the fun of Steph just does that sometimes and we don't know why. You know, this is 50 megapixel and I'm just putting just these photos out for the world.
Oh.
Would you like to maybe
Oh my God, that is
your
so
choices.
good.
Wow. So look, the whole point of this shoot was to get familiar with the two cameras, really know them in my hand and be able to distinguish the two of them and how I was finding the performance of each. The images will speak for themselves, but how they are in the hand, you really need some time to figure that out. Now, as fun as Steph is, fortunately, when she wants to, she can absolutely turn on the poses as well. Here's a first little range of shots. I'm going to share loads with you throughout this video. It seems this lens at f4 is transmitting more light than the Fuji was. But to really know how are they, it's hard when you're doing, you don't normally think about, oh, today I'm shooting with my Fuji and oh my goodness, this is 6% slower than my camera that I use on other shoots. It's kind of ridiculous, but you do need to kind of do them one shot, one shot, one shot to really get an idea of is one noticeably faster or slower to focus in these situations. So that's what I'll do. Fuji. I'd have to say, in this kind of a direct side-by-side, the Fuji is faster to focus, although both of them, I can definitely get the job done. It's not anything where I'm going to be missing shots, even in here where it's quite low light. Certainly nice to have the eye detect autofocus and face detect on the Fuji. In this kind of a shoot, where Steph's not moving and I'm not really moving, it's actually not really an issue, but outdoors, if there was more movement involved, certainly this is very handy. Although it misses the eyes quite a lot too. Throughout the day of shooting, we kept going live on Instagram to chat with you guys, show behind the scenes and get any feedback. You can check out both Steph's and my Instagram accounts in the description below. So one thing, being that this has that sync, I can just step up my shutter speed and go as high as we want. Now, if you're not using off-camera flash, you might just think this means nothing as we step up through the shutter speeds, but to be able to use the full power of your flash, sync speed does matter. High-speed sync doesn't give you full access. So here the shots are darkening down, that's the ambient. Of course, your shadows in a flashlit shot are the ambient, but I can go all the way to a 2000th and still get the full power of the flashes with the Hasselblad. Okay, so because both of these lenses are nice fast aperture, f2, f1.9, I will shoot this portrait again down at f2 so we get a comparable one, see how the background's looking, before I switch to the macro lens and then put them both up to say f5.6. What?
That made me so nervous.
It's alright, it's a
It was
rental.
like 2 fingers holding it.
Check out the links in the description below, folks. I'm going to give you a whole bunch of different photos from these first couple of shoots over at my website. You can download them, check them out for personal evaluation use. Is there anything that could be better? We got crazy Steph being crazy, Loki being sweet, and a pair of beautiful medium format cameras. I mean, how is the internet not collapsed right now? I don't understand.
Don't say that. It like crashes. No.
You okay, Bubba? Hey. Next up, we headed outside to do a couple of different natural light, no flash shots to see how they handle in that environment. Are you pretending to be a ballerina?
So I'm not as much of a freak, I guess.
You think this is making you less of a freak?
I'm guesstimating your height.
Okay, thank you. Let's see if
You're
the
welcome.
frame works. You jump in there, and then if this works for the shot. Beautiful, beautiful. At the end of the day, light is light, so finding your position, your angle, your direction, your frame, you can still get beautiful shots whether you're adding light to it or not. You just have less control if you're relying on the natural light. Okay, so a couple of things jumping out at me here. Shooting outdoors, both of these cameras are going to be acceptably fine, I think, for anything other than sports or fast-moving subjects. I did a video about the X150R in the past and talked about its performance as a street photography camera. Shooting portraits or shooting general stuff, I mean landscapes easy, but shooting portraits, they're both pulling focus easily fast enough and accurately enough, they're working great. The X1D original was a slouch. It was slow to focus and it was atrocious for startup time. Now it's, I don't know, doubled in speed, still not as fast as the Fuji. So 3 or so seconds to start up is acceptable. Almost instant is obviously better. How often are you actually turning a camera on a shoot? Well, it depends. Seeing neither of these systems have a lot of zooms, you're likely to change lenses. Go right ahead. Oh, hey, buddy.
Oh my god. Oh, that's so cute. You have a bow on you.
You have a bow. So, fair question. How often are you actually going to need to turn your camera on and off on a shoot? Seeing both of these systems are more prime heavy than zooms, you are likely to change lenses. That means turning your camera on and off. So the startup time being 3 to 4 seconds is still something. But for portrait shoots, both of them are going to be acceptable. Something to keep in mind when you're looking at these shots, both of the Fuji lenses are longer. That's just what I had access to. The 110 versus the 80, obvious difference in focal length. And then the 63 versus the 45, but that's what we've got. And oh my God, here comes Roman.
Oh my God, Roman's back.
Dun, dun, dun.
Oh no, don't even apologize. Hi! Oh,
you look like a tiny dog.
I know, it compares. Oh,
Roman, right?
Yeah.
Hey, buddy. Hello.
oh my God.
This is Monster?
Dallas. She is a monster, but no, her name.
You want to dance, Dallas?
Oh.
Is she a boxer?
Yeah.
She's so pretty. You guys are like local celebrities.
I know, right?
No one knows me, but these.
No, I said, remember that guy with the nice tattoos and the giant dogs? And then we continued talking about the dogs.
I appreciate that.
Actually, and your name is?
Mike.
Matt,
pleasure.
Roman,
Hi, I'm
and
Stephanie.
Dallas.
Hi.
Got it. Okay, so this is kind of a, is this even a fair criticism? The Fuji has the face tracking and eye detection, which is great, and when it's working is really helpful. But in this kind of situation, okay, so it can see you, but it can't pull you out. Open it up more. Okay, so there we get you. Okay, now just have it partly covering. Let it up. So it's seeing her face, but it can't get through the bushes to get her face. And so it's not exactly a fair comparison because the Hasselblad doesn't have that, but going onto a small point and we can fairly easily get through the bushes to get to her face. Da, 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 da. Wow, you're tall. So far, I am loving both of these cameras and both of these lenses. I already enjoyed this camera with some downsides, but those are things we're probably going to cover later in this series. They're still there, but this lens and this body combo is yielding beautiful results. In this kind of a situation where I'm not walking around a lot, the subject's not moving around a lot, I'm getting fantastic results. Love it. Same is absolutely true of this combo. No issue with focus speed or anything like that. I personally still like the interface of this one more, but I would, you know, if I were given either of these systems, I would absolutely love it and shoot it to death. Now, I do prefer the longer focal length than the 63 or the 45 for this kind of portraiture. So we've got this nice little scene here. It's actually really hard light, super contrasty, something that we often try to avoid. But I thought, one, it could be cool to try and get some interesting shadow patterns on her face. And two, if I'm giving you the raw files to check out, why not give you some with really hard light and shadow so you can see how the dynamic range is working out on both of them? Yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do it.
Messy hair, because
Messy hair, don't care.
You see this?
Yeah, I assume that's what the look
And
you
like
were
these
going for.
Fancy shoes.
Stephanie, it's a no from me.
Okay.
I want to get all of these cool shadow patterns across her face. This is again part of natural versus controlled light. Here we had a natural cookie, so why not use it and create some interesting shots, and it'll let us see the shadow recovery. We did one more location with Steph sitting on the bench here shooting the wood as a leading line in softer dappled light before heading back into studio and doing some super low light autofocus and high ISO tests, which I'll include the results of in part 2 of this series because this video is getting long. Okay folks, so that was a really fun day shooting with these two cameras, and Steph, she's just as fun to shoot with in person as it comes across in the video. Hope you get the chance to work with her either at one of my workshops or she's a freelance model and actress, so your paths may cross anyway. I'm going deep on these cameras. I'm shooting more and more since actually filming that day. I've had a good chance to look at the files on my computer. They're both coming up fantastically well. And there are little things coming out, you know, pluses of this, minuses of that, and vice versa, that it's really not a simple one is better than the other comparison that I can make. So next I'm going out and doing a full day of nature shooting with it, and later I'm going to be doing a full day of street photography with it, and then I'm going to have them for another 10 days. So let me know what other specific tests you would like to see done between these two so I can put it in. Like I said, I don't normally compare across brands like this, but being that these are both portable, take outdoors, take anywhere, medium format cameras with the exact same sensor in the ballpark in terms of body price, but with some obvious differences: leaf shutter, in-body traditional shutter, rangefinder-esque style, a brand new kind of modernist design. It's not that easy to compare them when on the spec sheet there's so many overlaps. In reality, there's a lot of differences in the hand. So I hope you found this useful. Check out the files and all the links in the description below. I'll see you in part 2.